Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it's the 16th day of July 2025. Welcome to our show today. So glad that you're here. We're going to be talking about several different issues. Number one, of the Republicans blocking the bill that came forward to allegedly release the Epstein files. And remember, nothing ever is what they say it is, and fake news, even alternative news, is mostly fake news and funded by things like USAID and that sort of thing. Anyhow, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to also be going through the petition language for Axe My Tax and prove that this is not about getting rid of property taxes. It's going to prove something far more nefarious. And I think people need to know exactly what's going on about all of this. So we're going to start out this morning with Liberty Essentials with Karen the Riveter and Ralph the IT guy. It's Bill's busy today. He's got a lot on his plate, so he'll be on next week. And then Greg Martini will be on at 10 o'clock with notices. So I'm kind of glad to be back to our normal Wednesday show. Just so you all know, I like my regulars far more than guests that are on this, because, it's just like sitting down with friends. So, and it's a lot of fun for me. So anyhow, good morning, Karen and Ralphie. How you guys doing?
Good morning. Speaking of regulars, Bill's okay. He's just busy today with work, right?
Right. He's just busy. He's just got a lot on his plate right now, with the new baby and all that. I mean, they've got a lot going on, which is amazing. I mean, I just, they're the nicest people, and they just really, they're like everybody else out there though, who is actually honest, that we're all working our ever living tails off trying to right this nation and still maintain our families. And it's just a lot. And he's got a young family, so it's a lot. So we can dive right into this stuff today. And I think we could talk about the subjects that are in the news, which is the Republicans blocking the release of the Epstein files. Let me pull this up a minute. And Ralph provided always like some really good links, because he's a nerd, like all of us are. And being a nerd is a superpower. I'm just going to tell y'all. So anyhow, what is this all about? This is about honesty. Lawmakers stall House progress on digital asset legislation, delaying debate and votes. Like everything, they have to complicate whatever it is that's in front of us. And just so everybody's clear, we are going to have to talk about this Republican nonsense that's going on out there right now, and people believing that the Republicans are doing really anything. It's a shame that people are so brainwashed into what's going on instead of looking at things for issues and what's going on behind the scenes. You want to talk to this, Ralph?
Yeah. So from what I've seen on this, basically what they tried to do is they tried to do a procedural move to tack on the release of the Epstein files thing to this other, like, massive bill package, and it kind of basically they tried to tack it on knowing that part of the bill package was going to be turned down, so that they could use it to badmouth the Republicans, because this bill package is way the heck bigger than just that. It wasn't like one isolated thing that they turned down. This is a massive bill package that is primarily about regulation of cryptocurrencies. And so what they're trying to do with this is get the government further involved in regulating cryptocurrencies. That's what the Genius and Clarity Acts are about. And then they've got one that is allegedly anti-central bank digital currency. I have not read through the language of that, so I cannot attest to that. But anything that says it's against something that everybody thinks is that it's against, you got to question whether it actually is.
Well, here's another problem right now, okay? So the biggest problem here is that neither side is doing what needs to be done. Neither side. I don't give a crap what anybody says to me. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. Because if the Republicans were getting this process under control and not, let's just say that they all have to sit there through the entire reading of the bills. They have to make the bills pertinent to the title. we limit the bills to single issues instead of filling it with all of these things so they can sneak crap in. Why is it that none of these people will do their jobs and correct the process?
Yep.
They refuse to making this thing a legal, I'm going to say lawful process, because I'm going to get dinged for saying legal, a lawful process that actually changes things fundamentally. They are all guilty. So we can sit there and say too, I mean, all of us, and I agree with you, okay, that this should never have been in there, and that's why they turned it down, because there was a negative there. I got to say that's kind of a good thing. But the point here being is, why do they not go for the throat of the corruption and correct the bill process? We have over 2,000 bills a year that goes in front of the Michigan legislature. I want you guys.
Nobody reading those things.
There is not any of them. I don't think they have the reading skills or comprehension skills to read it. But
they are required to be read aloud, don't you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yeah, and how do they satisfy that requirement? By reading the title.
Yes.
And that's what they consider to be reading the bill aloud, despite that being one of the procedures they're supposed to follow. They don't do that. But yeah, that's the problem with this. And so now they're broadcasting it far and wide that, the Republicans shot down the release of the Epstein files. No, they're lying about that, because yes, they shot it down, but it's under procedural rules for a gigantic omnibus bill that shouldn't even be there in the first place.
Correct. And the other thing is that why are they not correcting the fundamental problems that are within our nation? Because every one of them are complicit. They all play the game, and then they're like, oh no, they're doing this. Oh no, they're doing that. As they're drinking behind the scenes in the Capitol and everywhere else, in order to just say, hey, we got them this time. Hey, we got them this time. How much money did you raise? To have another party, and nothing changes. And I'm sorry, but I am so disgusted with this. And I really do believe, and I'm going to go back to this, that all these clowns that are sitting in front of us are nothing more than clowns. That's it. Some of them are placeholders. Some of them have been put there by good guys and bad. There's good guys playing bad guys and bad guys playing good guys. It's a mess. However, I still believe that the good guys are in control behind the scenes to a degree, but I think they're waiting for us to get our heads out and start acting like a population that wants to self-govern. That means we've got to know the processes and the procedures in order to hold them accountable, and not just be one of these political puppets like Nesbitt, whatever, who's a DeVosite, and jump into this or these ridiculous proposals out there like Axe My Tax, which is not even remotely about property tax, just like this bill. It's to confuse everybody, and people will not take the time to do that. And I get it. It takes a lot of time. Turn on news, Fox News, it's all fake. All of it's fake.
That's part of the problem. I got a couple of things I want to say about that. So one, you got this narrative battle going on. And for me, yesterday, when I first heard they turned it down, I'm like, well, of course they turned it down. The Democrats knew they were going to turn it down. Even if it was just that single item, I could see it going that way. It's like, these two parties, they work together. So it's like, well, you shoot it down this time and we'll shoot it down the next time, and we won't all get implicated. They're all involved in it. So of course they're never going to approve something that is going to implicate them, whether there are files or there aren't files, or what does Epstein files actually mean by definition to them. You have to look at all those details. But part of that is that narrative game, and that's what I posted about last night. I called it a game too. It's a game. And secondly, what happened yesterday with all this confusion and drama, and it's expounded or expanded upon by Trump when he's saying, I don't know why people keep talking about Epstein files. There's so much confusion and frustration. And part of that would go away if, number one, people understood how Congress works and doesn't work. And number two, they do something about it, like you said. So part of this problem is they see a vote on TV or a little video clip on Telegram. They don't know what the vote is about. It's got a number at the top of the screen. Do people even know how to look that number up and see what exactly are they in the middle of a vote on? It might say, if you're watching CNN or something, what are they actually, there's a little title at the bottom of the screen, but it might say Epstein files instead of bill package, which shouldn't exist. And if people understood there are so many complicated rules and they can vote on vote without actually getting down to the thing of the day. And if it wasn't complicated, if people could understand it and follow along, and if people made the effort to, instead of just, like you said, reading headlines, we wouldn't all be so confused. And if people would look at Trump and say, that's not really what he's saying. He might be saying a slew of other things when he says, why are people still talking about Epstein files? Maybe he's saying you people should be looking elsewhere.
I'm going to tell you what, for candidates, if somebody is not talking nullification, can them right there. And so yesterday, it was another one of those days that in the last week, I've had so many people come to me and go, and this is from within the Republican Party of Michigan, we have no good candidates. And they're admitting to this. We have no good candidates. They're like, will you please? They've been begging me to run on the Republican Party. Absolutely begging me to run on this. And
we want to win, Donna. It's got to be you.
It's got to be you, Donna. We got to win. Our candidates suck. It's like, because you suck. The Republican Party sucks. They have not done anything. There's no leadership. There's no vision. If I looked at this as a company, it would be like, well, it's time to liquidate right now because there's no hope. Well, then they sit there and they go, but we got to fix it from the inside. How's that working for all of you?
How many years have you been doing that?
Yeah. How many years have you keep espousing and talking that things are going to change, just like having a dead actor Biden in office? How's that working for everyone? And you know what? My answer to them is like, how can you possibly ask me to run on an organization that I have foreknowledge of that is a criminal organization? They have broken the Constitution. They have taken foreign money. They have cheated in every way, 17 ways to Taiwan. You've got Lisa McClain, who leaked documents to the Qataris that came out. You've got all of these people who are doing every criminal organization, and you want me to stand with them? I will not and cannot stand with something and say, no, well, you can get in and change it. No, I can't, because the minute I walk in there, every single one of them that's protecting their little bunny turf is going to be like off with her head, making stuff up. I already went through this goat rodeo. I already saw it. It's like it is detestable to me because they are committing crimes against, the parties are against America and Americans. So when I see this and these wonderful, it's like everybody knowing what's wrong with Disney World, the grooming, the things that were said by the president about, children and the child trafficking and all of this, and the grooming going on within Disney's content. It's like asking me, but it's a great idea. We just got to get in there and salvage it from the inside out, and everything's going to be fine. No. And I'm sorry, but this is also one of those things that they've been wanting me now to run for Congress. And I'm like, that sounds like a quick trip to a daily hell for Donna Brandenburg. Not going to do it. And so I sit there and I go, and this is what I hear fundamentally over and over and over again. It's a lack of faith in God and a worship of their own plan. It has to be done by the Republican Party. That's the only way. It's the only way this is going to work. No, because that's our plan. No, that's not going to be the way it's going to work. The way it's going to work is to be jumping off of these corrupt systems, trusting God to make the way, and stopping worship of our own plans and saying, you know, yeah, we've got all this criminal stuff going on, but that's okay. This is the only way we'll win. Well, how would that work if we made brownies with a little bit of dog crap in it and we were eating it? No, I don't think that's okay. It's like, but there's only a little bit in the brownies. No, if you made brownies with dog crap in it, you're still eating dog crap. Okay, simple, concise, farm logic, and to the point. Right?
It's only a little bit.
It's only a little bit.
Well, I used to say, how can you drain the swamp when you're standing in it?
Yeah.
You're going to get dirty if you stand in the swamp. You got to stand outside of the swamp and you put a big hose in there. You don't stand in it. You're going to get dirty. You can't, it just doesn't work.
And it's like, I've gone to all of these events. I can tell you, not one of them is clean. They're all infiltrated. Every single one of them. And whatever you're seeing on the news, it's not the truth. The majority of it is actors. The majority.
Yep.
And people who are just as confused as you are, that are, when I went to that James O'Keefe thing, I'm not a big James O'Keefe fan because I watched what was happening there. And I'm going to tell you what, yeah, it's kind of a show. They sat there raising money for him. I mean, and it was about raising money, la, la, la. He came out and said, oh, I'm going to give you guys special knowledge on this rooftop party. It was all a bunch of like optical gags or nobody could talk to each other because it was so loud. He jumps up on stage being the DJ and such and says, yes, and just stay tuned because I'm going to show you all this coming week. I had somebody that was sitting next to me from New York, a Republican chair from New York. And she was really mad. And I'm like, what did you really expect out of this? Did you really? This is about going to these events where it's so loud that people can talk, where no one can intercept the discussion. You're in a spy versus spy game, people. That's what you're seeing. And if we can figure out what's really behind the scenes, we might have a shot at winning. But right now, I am telling you, anybody who is on the Republican Party or stands with them because, well, we can clean it from the inside out. You've had temporary motion that they're allowing you to have to make you think that you're making progress. But they're gonna rip that football right out from underneath you, just like Lucy did Charlie Brown. And everybody keeps wanting to kick that freaking football. It's not going to work. And to be an actual patriot who is going to not tell me, actually, one of the gals that asked me to run to the Republican Party asked me to lie. They all ask you to lie to come on board. That first lie is when it goes all to hell right there. Just to get in, just to make it, just to have them control you. You die.
And then they use this
lie.
And then they use this desperation thing about the third party will never work. They constantly are pounding that drum. This concept that, well, if we're going to beat the Democrats, we have to go with the Republicans.
You want to know
the only way
of an argument that is? As I sat down and talked this thing through, I'm just spilling out. I'm going to spill everything. Screw it. I'm sick of this. Anyhow, they wanted me to lie. And say that, walk away from the Constitution Party and said, you don't have to give it up. Just hand the reins over to somebody else. And then you get in the Republican Party and win. And then, it doesn't really change anything. I'm like, well, the problem is it would be with foreknowledge for the crimes that the Republican Party committed. What do I do with that? Well, you're just going to split the vote. I'm like, stop right there. Okay. So the vote argument, they were like, well, you split the vote with Tudor Dixon. I'm like, well, Tudor Dixon is from a criminal family. I talked to people where they destroyed the foundry industry in Norton Shores, left people with 36 small businesses, family businesses, with one guy said $36,000 that they didn't pay the debt on. They were selling receivables that they didn't even have. Her dad was behind Falls, I think it's Falls River. I can look it up again. And that's out of Naples. They're a global information selling game. She was part of Lumen Learning. Lumen, the name attached to who? that would be Bill Gates, Lumen Technologies. And she had it listed as a 10-minute clip for going into schools to teach children as having a $5 million. They always have $5 million. You want to look up something interesting? Look at all the companies that say that they have a $5 million. It's a $5 million company. It's sort of like surfing. Richard Hausman, that they put in with the Republican, or as a Republican, into the board of canvassers. He's got a couple of them, $5 million that they claim. Tells me they're placed, they're fake as hell. And somebody placed them there, but they've got to have something, some made up entity that they say is $5 million under Laura. No, nothing about that. Well, if there was any honesty, where the hell did she get the money? In Lumen, Bill Gates. And so so I destroyed her argument. I said, so split the vote, right? I said, we don't have a vote. They're literally
exactly
totals in what they want people to have. I, who campaigned harder than anybody in the state, was all over the state, had less votes than the guy who didn't campaign, who was running for sheriff of Wayne County. Now, I want you to put this in perspective. Why would they do that? Why would I have less votes? I had more supporters than that by far. Why is that an issue? I had less than in the ones that they recorded, less than 15,000, and people go, "Oh yes, Donna Brandenburg got no votes." It's a catch-22, and it was like, yeah, I got less votes than the person running for sheriff of Wayne County who did not campaign, and the person who was running for Wayne State University trustee, they got more, and they didn't campaign. They just had their name on the ballot. The whole damn thing is absolutely corrupt. There's no truth to any of it. And so guess what? I'm just going to continue to sue people. And I'm going to sue them until we have some compliance here. And I'm winning. Nobody knows it because we've got the village idiots jumping on these time wasters that don't move the bar and can't even make a decision on things such as Ask My Tax and know what this is about. Because
so speaking though of where did the funding come from, you had some real interesting stuff about the production of all of our educational textbooks.
Yeah, guess who's behind that? Because I do actual research. I don't sit there and listen to people online and have these people I worship on what they're saying. It was Robert Maxwell, who was Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, who was Epstein's cohort. I'm not even going to say handler because they're all part of a crime syndicate, who got power of attorney over Robert Maxwell's estate, who left Czechoslovakia as a refugee, went to Britain, somehow ended up with $1.2 billion to buy Harcourt Brace and Macmillan Press, ended up with Pergamon Press, which the name Pergamon ties right back to Satan. We're in a satanic system right now. And if you pay attention, they're giving homage to him all the time. The Baal worship and all of this. It's totally antichrist. The whole system is. And they were what? Publishing all of our textbooks, including Scholastic. And so why are the schools going to hell in a handbasket? Because it's based on a satanic system, which is tied in with Epstein, the child trafficking, because they're grooming the kids, all of it. And they're changing history. There is no honesty. I got to show you a book I just bought. It's kind of cool. It's from 1880s. And it's absolutely magnificent on real history that they were teaching children. I think I need to start doing some actual history courses on what's going on, which brings us to another uncomfortable subject, slavery. Ever notice how when they want to push something, they always make a victim class? So right now it's the taxpayer. I'm going to keep saying if I jumped on the bandwagon with Ask My Tax, I would have a tremendous swing in my bottom line. All right. I have enough integrity not to do that because I don't care about self-gain. God provides for me. I would get out of, if you guys knew how much property tax I pay, it is obscene. I pay an obscene amount of property taxes. So if I jumped on Ask My Tax and said it was a good thing, I would have self-gain, but I'm not going to do this. I'm going to lay this out for exactly what this is and what this is about. I want Ralph to come back on here. I'm hoping he gets back on because we're going to talk about slavery. slavery was not at all about, the Civil War was not at all about slavery. There were two issues that it was really about, and it was deception. Let me see if I can grab Ralphie Buddy here, and we're going to talk about this and see why he's not on, because I'm assuming that the feed got cut for a reason.
He said the whole thing froze up on him.
Yep. So let's just get Ralphie on here, and we're going to talk about, because they cut his feed like always. If you talk about, hi, I've got you on speakerphone because clearly something happened to your feed because they don't want us talking about slavery.
Yeah, the whole thing froze up.
And what actually happened in the Civil War. The Civil War was not about slavery, as they stated. It was about federalizing our government instead of states' rights. They destroyed it. And that's what they've been about from day one, is collectivizing, it's collectivism on our government and tearing away states' rights and individual rights so that they can put us all into the slave class. That's what it's all about. Property tax, if they can get a bunch of property owners to go, that's right, we got to get on Axe My Tax. Guess what? You were about abolishing our Constitution. And this is what this is all about. I'd like you to talk for a minute, Ralph, on what actually happened between the North and the South.
So
and
if you
abolitionists as opposed to
the emancipationists.
Right.
So if you, I would say the foundational thing that people should do is go read the Confederate Constitution. Because what you realize is that it is almost identical to the current U.S. Constitution. There are very few changes. And among those changes were steps toward abolishing slavery. Not in the abolitionist movement sense, but in the emancipationist sense. So there's a difference there in that the abolitionists basically were, we need to stop slavery right now, immediately, without doing anything to do any safety nets or anything. It's just got to be done. The emancipationists were more, we need to phase this out and have more of a controlled elimination of it. And when you read through the Confederate Constitution, they had adopted procedures for phasing it out. They were more on the emancipationist side. So they had certain parts of it that protected pieces of slavery. But they also had steps in there to start eliminating it. They had a complete ban on the importation of new slaves to the southern states. And the idea there by a lot of the states was that we need to have we need to get something passed with some initial steps on this and then start negotiating, just like we had with the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We need to get agreed on this and then start enacting more steps as we go to figure out how to do the rest of this to completely eliminate it. And this was before the North had done anything really about slavery. So they were really the ones that took the initial steps on it.
And then the North captured it and made it an emotional issue, so they could put more weight into the federal government and destroy the states' rights to act as a state and or a country in its own right.
Yep. And in my opinion, I don't think that it would have become an issue for the Civil War had it not been for the emotional, basically propaganda value of it. And because you look at it, and I don't think that Lincoln would have ever signed the Emancipation Proclamation had he not been pressured by Cassius Clay. And so there were, it wasn't about that initially, and it wasn't about that for a long portion of it until they turned it into an issue and then tried to get people who had never read the Confederate Constitution convinced that it was all about, they wanted to protect slavery and not take the initial steps to actually eliminate it, not on a state-by-state level, but actually in the Constitution of the Confederacy. Had they mirrored the same thing in the full U.S. Constitution, it would have. They never even really did that in the U.S. Constitution. They did that basically just by ruling from the bench from the Supreme Court more than anything, and then they went into the amendment later. But that was not something that was. Look at the sequence of events. Go read the Confederate Constitution, and this is one of those do your own research kinds of things, because there's so much propaganda out there. And you look at the current news and how much of the current news is fake, and then realize that, well, history is written by the victors. And you start looking at, okay, what's the actual timelines behind all this stuff? Wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And what are the actual documents, and what do they say? And then you start realizing, yeah, no, they've been lying to us about history completely.
Especially when you look at the fact that a Mossad agent was behind all of our textbooks. I mean, let's be real about this. I mean, where was this going? And I mean, this is something we got to get real about. And anytime that there's an emotional response that they can use to tie people in, that you become a captured asset and part of their crime syndicate. They use you. We're already in a war right now. We're in a civil war right now. It's just not a kinetic war yet.
Yep. And that's what we're working to keep it from being, is, a kinetic war is a failure of diplomacy.
Absolutely.
And so right now, that's what we're fighting for, is to keep it out of turning into a kinetic war. But it is, make no mistake, we are definitely at war right now, but it's a war of the minds.
Yeah, and it's like, can people think their way through it, or do they question everything, or do they automatically just jump on? So like, when people look at these petitions, and Axe My Tax is just going to be the poster child for abject failure, because there's a law firm behind it from California. There's all sorts of things attached to this that nobody wants to talk about, and I have gotten fried for pulling these subjects forward. Actually, I did a Bible study this morning on how, because we're different in this world as believers in Christ who will not lie, and that we're a peculiar people, we shouldn't be taking the money or the bait. There's so many fakes out there, it's not even funny. But actually standing for something and setting a standard, and realizing that when you are attacked, it's a badge of honor, because it means that you're in the world and not of the world. And that's something to be of note too, right? When we look at Axe My Tax and see all of these crazy conflicts, the majority of people, because they're really good at talking, going to a meeting, and took our meeting right over on the Constitution Party, and I had to silence her. I'm like, you don't just come into our meeting and talk until you've taken the entire meeting time up as someone's guest who was pretty much kind of like uninvited. I don't know if she was invited. I didn't know about it until I got there, and all of a sudden she's there. And as vice chair, I dismissed her. I'm like, that's enough. And at any rate, I'm like, I don't do well with propaganda. I don't handle it well. And so anyhow, how many people actually read the petition language? Like probably less than 0.5%. They read the language that's on the top of the petition, which has been approved by the Bureau of Elections as extrapolated out of the actual petition language. So it's like the American people are as guilty as Congress is of not reading these bills or what they're passing. So I'm going to add this to the screen a minute, and we're going to continue to not go down the village idiot path here and actually look at this for what it is. Okay. Let's see if I can increase the size of this just a little bit. I don't know if I can. We can probably read it here. But this, my friends, is the petition language for Axe My Tax. What you're seeing on the petition is just approved by the Bureau of Elections. And what is hidden in here? It's just like an omnibus
Okay,
bill.
wait a second. The Bureau of Elections.
Who Jonathan Brader just admitted to perjury and destroying election records without the authority to do so. This is being approved by the Board of Canvassers. Board of Canvassers actually is involved in it. Brader's sitting right on the stand with them as they do this. Carla Wagner was, collecting signatures after the due date to keep people busy. People, I'm going to tell you what, you better start asking questions about all of this nonsense.
It's a goat rodeo.
It's a goat rodeo. So let's go back to seeing what the actual real issue here is. And I got to thank Mike Bambus for bringing this forward. See, this is really the deal here, guys. We have to work as a group of people, not one person, but a group of people who chase this stuff down, because one person can't do it all. If anybody thinks President Trump is doing this alone, you are in the idiot category. All right, so let's look at this. And here is the death sentence in this entire thing. Right here, above Article 1, Declaration of Rights. The provision of existing Constitution altered or abrogated by the proposal if adopted. They are using this to alter the Constitution. This is the death blow sentence in this thing. If you jump on this, you are, and I will accuse you to your face of being someone who will not stand for the Constitution. That way you are guilty of treason, because you're not standing with the law and allowing this ridiculous piece of shit to alter our Constitution through hidden ways. And anybody that votes for this based on the fact that they only read the language on the petition is not acting with knowledge. It's deception, total deception. In other
words, the Bureau of Elections has acted treasonously.
Absolutely, they have, and so
because they've allowed something
that's backed this, because they're backing something that alters the Constitution.
Well, I mean, if it's an amendment, that's the intention of it, but it's not. It's not that. It's going against the Constitution in the language.
Yes.
There's a difference there. If you're amending the Constitution, that's different than.
But they're doing
going against the Constitution.
But they're doing it the same way. It's the same thing. It's altering and putting things in there. Provisions of existing Constitution are altered or abrogated by the proposal if adopted. They're altering the Constitution.
Yeah, that's what the ballot initiatives are about.
All
and that's
of
why
them.
It's so important to read them. That is, by definition, that is what they're trying to do whenever they do one of these ballot initiatives. Whenever you see a proposal like that, it's pretty much always to change the Constitution.
It's eliminating your rights, and they're doing it.
People don't, until people start reading the actual language of these things, they're going to keep sneaking stuff in there into the Constitution, the Michigan Constitution for the Michigan proposals. They're going to keep sneaking it in there until people start reading this stuff and actually get educated about what's in it.
So now call it out. Every single person that's involved in this is engaged in changing the Constitution by subversive methods. Every single person that's backing this. Go to their Facebook page. Get the names.
Well, I used to be a petition gatherer for a signature petition gatherer. Anyway, for Restore Freedom. And I didn't understand the language. I read it, thought it sounded good. It's probably not actually a good thing. But at the time, I was like, hey, we need this. This is a good thing. And I was out there working for it. So there, I can see how people will when we don't really understand what we're reading, again, language and things is so complicated and we haven't been educated. So it's easy for people at the quote unquote grassroots level to get confused and think that they're doing the right thing by supporting something which is not. And I think that's a lot of the people who have been supporting this, at least in part, are persuaded by the headline, X my tax. Well, that sounds like a good thing. You got to go deeper than that. And then you got to go deeper than that. You got to really, like you just did. And it wasn't until yesterday, wasn't it, that you saw what you're talking about now.
Yes.
So even Donna Brandenburg, who researches things and knew and was telling everybody constantly about how this was a bad deal for Michiganians, also learned something more from someone else yesterday. And now she brings it forward again for those who may have missed that show. That's a big deal. But
it's a big
that's
deal.
how complicated this can be. How hard it is to discern what is good from what is bad, to make it that simple.
Together. We have to stand together in order to make this work, because the attack is on we the people. And I'm going to go back to, if I jumped on this would be like a legislature or somebody in the legislature jumping on a bill because there was self-gain involved. If I jumped on this and said, oh, this is a great thing, man, look at this, I will have so much money coming out of this. Everyone that's supporting it, though, is doing the same thing, because they're going, yes, we got to get under property taxes. And then listen, they go right to, well, there's all these old people that are going to lose their houses. They're going to lose their houses anyway, because they're just shifting this onto the public. They're not talking about cuts. They're not talking about anything that's going, they're just going to shift the taxes. So that argument is dead. It's dead on arrival. And it's important to stand, because all the people that I know that are supporting it are going to try to get out from underneath property taxes. Unfortunately, they're just not into it enough to realize they're just going to shift it. They're going to shift it back on the people and absolve companies like BlackRock, who has a $50 billion tax liability, out from paying any taxes. You think you're not going to pick those up, and discretionary taxes or otherwise? They want to tax us out of the land, shove us into their 15-minute camps, city camps, and they own everything. And all we are is just like Chinese Communist, the CCP. If you don't jump into their party, remember the name party is involved in this, you're eliminated. That's what's going on.
And look too, and if you read through that petition, the actual language there in the sections of law where they're making changes, and look at where they're proposing increasing the taxes, it goes into state income tax, it goes into tax on businesses, it goes into taxes on tobacco, and I believe it goes into taxes on alcohol, but the primary portion of it comes from income taxes and taxes on businesses. Now, those are going to be businesses that are incorporated in Michigan, not the big Delaware corporations or the ones incorporated in the Cayman Islands or anything like that. So now, like you said, with BlackRock, now any of them that are paying property taxes that are not actually incorporated in Michigan, it gets them entirely out of the tax liability and shifts all those taxes onto the residents of Michigan and the people trying to do business here that are actually paying Michigan taxes.
It's going to destroy. It would destroy the attack on the small businesses across this small to medium across the nation has just been unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, because they're trying to put in the same thing with their public-private partnerships is going on in China, with that the state owns all businesses. If they regulate you in any way, shape, or form, you are being owned by the government, because they're making money off of it, and they can shut you down. It's the same thing. And that's
part of the problem, too, with the regulations that they're trying to pass with the whole Epstein thing. The regulations that they're trying to pass to get the government involved in more involved than it already is in regulating cryptocurrencies. because the reason why a lot of the benefits of cryptocurrencies are because they are not a government-issued fiat currency, right? Well, you start getting the government involved in it, and then what is it? It's a government-controlled fiat currency.
And we've talked about this before. It's like, well, it's on the blockchain. It's safe. No, it's not. Because the NSA, with the computing power that they have, they could spin up so many nodes that they could overwhelm the entire system probably in less than an hour.
But the blockchain is magic, so it's impervious to that.
That's right. I can't. It boggles people's minds when they don't have an actual handle on the nefariousness of the people behind the scenes that are rigging this. Makes me so sad, because these people know what they're doing. If they ask you to lie, like I've been asked to lie so many times, I just won't do it. Not going to do it. It's not worth it to me.
Too, the other thing that we're kind of covering here is go read the actual language of things. Stop relying on summaries. And that's, read the petitions, read the laws, read the things that you're subjecting yourself to. I mean, like, how many people in Congress do you think actually read the Patriot Act before passing it?
Zero.
And that goes to read, go down to a personal level here, just like we should be with all of government. Start with fixing the problems here in your own life, and go read the terms and conditions for things that you sign up for. I've been laughed at for being one of the people that's a stickler for read the terms and conditions for stuff. But I have passed on actually signing up for things because the terms and conditions are so abhorrent.
Well, your skill in contract law is amazing. And
what's that?
Your skill in contract law and knowledge is amazing.
Oh, thank you. But, it's like there's an internet provider that I looked at signing up with at one point in time. They offer great service. You read through their terms and conditions. They take ownership of anything you transmit over their lines. And I have no idea how many people have actually signed up for that. I raised the issue with their legal department and said, basically, no, this is, I'm not going to sign up for this until you address this and actually fix this in your contract. Because this is, I don't know how you thought you could get away with sneaking this in there, but, it's in there.
It's a destruction of property rights.
And the salesperson didn't even know that it was in there that I talked to. So they didn't know, and their legal department didn't really know. So, I don't know. I mean, there was one piece of software that I can think of that I think this was back in the early 2000s. They put in their terms and conditions that because they knew people wouldn't read it, they put in their terms and conditions that you hereby assign ownership of your immortal soul to the makers of this software.
Wow.
They did it kind of as a joke, but like nobody called them out for it for a very long time. And so this kind of stuff happens, and you got to actually get in there and read it.
And it's like a cookies thing. Like sometimes you can reject some cookies or reject all cookies. Sometimes it's just an either or. And I'm like, I'll leave a website that the first thing I see on there is, do you allow all our cookies? And I'm like, no, I don't want to give up anything just to read your site, just to shop on your company's website. Like, I would rather that it gives me the option of rejecting certain things just so the website can function. But that's how the terms and conditions usually are. You don't get to, in some contracts, you have to put little initials in the check boxes. Yes, I agree to this, and yes, I agree to that. So you can opt out of certain things. The terms and conditions are usually an either or on the entirety. And it's a digital, so you don't have the option. It's not like you're at a bank or a mortgage office and you can say, hey, you know what? I don't want to give away my immortal soul, but can I do the rest of this? I'm okay with the rest of this, but that one I don't want to do. And they can say, oh yeah, here, we'll just cross this off, and then you initial it, and that'll be okay. Can't do that when you're accepting software. They give you an either or, then you're done.
Well, let's talk about informed consent. How many people actually vote for things that have informed consent? They show up at the voting booth, and there's the summary there, which went right through the hands of our government, but they don't even, some people don't even have access to the full petition languages. I mean, do they have a computer? Can they actually find this? Because it's just like everything within our government. It's so hard to find information that should be out in the public that we should be able to search and get without paying. It's behind a paywall. All of this stuff is to keep us in the dark so they can just continue to run their crime syndicate and take advantage of our ignorance.
Well, since you brought it up, when you go to vote, to cast your ballot, whichever way you want to pronounce it as, you have to fill out a little card, and on there it says, are you a U.S. citizen?
Exactly. Yes.
I think I've marked it both ways, because I'm like, well, I don't want to say yes, I am, because you didn't define it here. And that's why I still am on that, because some definitions, absolutely, I'm an American citizen. I'd rather just say I'm an American sovereign woman living on the land of Michigan, but they don't put that on there. I want that language clarified on every document where it matters. And that is why when they say you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in the federal election, I went, wait. Did you define citizen before you approved of that concept? Because most people now are, well, you're either a citizen or you're an illegal. Maybe not. I want to see the definition laid out before I agree to that. And you had someone on your show recently that talked about the difference between a Michigan citizen and a federal citizen or a national citizen. There's a difference there, and it matters. And that is why, are we going to, when we're doing an election, which is unlawful, for a president, the way we've been doing it, are we contracting with the federal government by stating that we're a U.S. citizen? Or on that card, does that define us as a Michigan citizen? I don't know that it really clarifies it on that document. It's the same document, whether it's a Michigan election that we're participating in or a national or both, depending on what's on the ballot of the day. So that language matters so much. And like you just discovered something new about that amendment petition language. We have to learn how to, because I guarantee there are some of them behind this that know about language and they're careful with it. But there are also some like Brader who do not know. There's a lot of things he doesn't know, and that's why he gives you those blank answers to some of those questions. I don't really know. Who can possibly know all of the election rules and policies and procedures in Michigan? Well, I can't blame him for not knowing that.
We have to go to null because there's conflicting. It's like what they did with the Bible. God gave 10 commandments, and the Jews had to add 648 more.
Yeah.
And they were all in, so it gives you the ability just to give favor to some and not to others, and look one way or look the other way. But that's not the blind scales of justice in any way, shape, or form. It's an attack on people, and it gives too much power into the hands of those who want to exploit.
But they shouldn't, they shouldn't matter if they read it or not, because it's read to them before they vote on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no informed consent going on there, which is.
Well, I'll tell you what, like you can't pause in the reading of something and ask a question without it taking forever. And I have experience with this. The writing and editing of documents in the assembly will take you hours if it's happening within one day, and months if it happens on a monthly meeting level. So because the assembly, the one thing that I did, I can say in a positive way, people in the assembly have learned that language matters, and commas and other punctuation matters a lot. And so I've got an eagle eye for a lot of that. I don't know all the rules, but I can spot things that jump out at me better than some people can. But there are certain words, like something like citizen, that might matter to some people and not to others. Well, what's the phrase, we the people mean? There are so many different things that they would pick up on in a document and edit and discuss for 15 minutes one little phrase. It will take you a long time to write, and you know this, Donna, even from just participating in the writing of those resolutions.
Resolutions and lawsuits and such.
You've got a lot of, and lawsuits too. You've got, I want to do X, and then you break it down into, well, we have to do it in 10 pieces. Well, what's the language for that? And in looking at one of those resolutions before, I commented on, it says citizen. And I was like, well, which definition are you guys including in this? And, that jumps out at me because it's something that I think is really important. And it may not be as important to other people. And maybe I could take over a meeting saying you have to take that word out unless you define it in some way. It could take a long, long time in order to get things where you feel spot on perfect about a document. They are not going to do that in a 5,000 page document.
Right. And I think this is a good time to talk about, let's bring God back into the conversation, and let's talk about our transformation going through this process and learning things as we go along. I think that I was having a discussion with Ralph this morning, and one of the biggest things that came out of that is that if we can't look back at our lives and feel disgusted at ourselves in the past, we haven't changed. And it's okay to look back and see our mistakes. God forgives us through Jesus Christ. We're forgiven for that. But to look back and go, I wish I would have known this before, or if I would have known this, I would have done something different. That's the process of learning. And it's okay to look back and, to go look back and go, wow, have I come a long ways? Which also leads us to the discussion of the transformative presence of Christ in our life. We are supposed to be actively looking for things to change, to become better people. And that when I say that is become more like Christ. And he doesn't require us, that doesn't mean we need to have more things or more money or more this or more that. It comes with an inside heart that is learning to fight for the right things in the right ways instead of just lie about it a little bit. It's all about getting in. That's still eating brownies with dog crap in it right there.
Yep.
It's supposed to be a continuous process improvement.
It is. We are a work in process, and only God knows the end of where this is going. He's got a plan for us, and that's a huge thing to focus on. But don't feel embarrassed either if you didn't know something before and more information comes forward, and sit there trying to be right and defend your biases and defend your position you're on. I'm going to tell you right now, if I saw something that, and it doesn't matter who it is, if I saw somebody doing something that was criminal, I would lay them out. I would say something. I wouldn't just make excuses for them. And that even goes for the President of the United States. We have to hang with, and I don't mean turning your back on somebody for these temporary nonsense things in the news. That's not it. It is sticking to in the United States in the political realm, into a lawful process, and having your focus and your allegiance being first of all to God Almighty and what he tells us to do and he convicts us to do. That is the first and only true allegiance we should ever have. The second one, though, is that the gifts he's given us, the people around us, which is, our families and our country, and the ideals that he's asking us to transform towards in our quest to be more like him. If you really believe in God, you do what he does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can't compromise.
You can't. And the ends don't justify the means. And
Correct.
somebody being asked to lie over and over and over again, I won't do it. And God will take our efforts and our intentions, what we know is right, and it's going to be about his fight. It's not going to be about mine or yours or anybody else's. It's going to be God's fight, God's win, God's way, and that's the only way that it's going to be done correct. And I would love to tell everybody out there, are you going to keep eating the brownies with dog crap in it? Or are you ready to be a true revolutionary, jumping into something that we may not even know what it looks like, but not justifying the means by the ends? That's your plan. That's your bias. That's getting in the way of God. And
jump into Jordan, and what was that phrase you used? Jump into Jordan and see what happens.
I tell my kids that way. The reality is, and here's a great lesson. The reality is that when they were going to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land, and you've got the priests that were told to jump into this river. Okay, just so you know, this is not the Charlton Heston version of the Promised Land here. It is a deep, running, fast, narrow river. The first step in with a golden laid ark, by the way, is over their head 6 feet underwater to a certain depth. That's the commitment that was made at that step, is getting away from your biases. Lay it all down. Lay your life down, your possessions down, what you think it's going to take to fix this nation down, and jump into that Jordan and be willing to say, I'm going to do what God's telling me to do, even if it means going to a certain death, because I'm going to give this to God's hands to make sure that it's righted. I'm not going to question him. All my eggs are in God's basket. Not the Republican Party, not the Democrat Party, not the Constitution Party, not the any party, not the any plan that we lay out for ourselves. Put all the eggs in God's basket. And as I always told my kids when they were little and they were afraid and they didn't know what to do, and they saw something that they thought they wanted to do, but it didn't make sense, I'd say, look at them and say, jump in the Jordan and see what God will do, because then you're going to really see the miracles happen. When we're ready to jump in the Jordan with this nation and let God take over and God's will be done, that's when we win. And if anybody asks you to lie or compromise, like I have been asked so many times, you've got to walk away from it. You can't justify the means by the end.
This is taking me way back to when you were running for governor, and I wrote a lengthy Substack series about why you should vote for Donna. And we talked about that third party thing. And this is one of those aspects of it where if you're stuck on, we have to go with the better of two evils because good can't win. I mean, that's really what I like Donna. I like everything she stands for, but good can't possibly win. So I'm going to have to vote for what I think is the better of two evils over here in the Republican Party. And it's like, do you vote in faith? Are you saying that you're voting without faith?
Because
that's exactly what was happening.
Party, your God is the Republican Party that's going to cross you over the finish line? Who hasn't done it in how many decades? No.
And I'll note that if you're voting for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil.
You're still eating brownies made with dog crap. I'm not going to do it. So, and that's why with the Constitution Party, I'm like, when they gave me their honor, and I honored that. I'm the chairman of the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan. And it's like, okay, if and I really felt convicted to have to keep the party on the ballot. If I hadn't stepped forward, the party was going to disappear because everybody was so dragged out and demoralized and sick of the fight. And I just happened to have this incredible bullheaded, unwavering resolve that when God asks you to do something, you just keep walking. It doesn't matter. You don't have to see the end. Just keep walking and refuse to give up and refuse to waver. Then he honors that commitment. He honors that. And he's the one that brings everything to this because it's his issue. It's always been his issue. It's always going to be his issue. When we start acknowledging it, that's when we win. And it's like I'm just committed to keeping this party on the ballot. So when the Republicans finally wake up and realize there's no leadership, there's no plan, it's fractured beyond repair because the people that are in there have captured it through infiltration, lies, deceit, asking people to lie, deceiving by the message, making these messages up just to get to the voters. They've got a message right. That's a lie. That's manipulation. Instead of standing for something, I am so disgusted with this. The whole system, entire system, is built on deception, just like this petition language for Axe My Tax. They're going to sneak to change the Constitution, and we're going to bring it right around to that once again. I'm going to bring Greg into the conversation right now and then we're going to go for a quick break because Greg's been very patiently listening to us backstage, and I think that this is one of those things that the biggest thing we can do today is self-introspection on what we're willing to stand for. Are we going to jump onto this stuff for self-enrichment, or are we willing to sacrifice because the greater goal is there? And talk about things like God. Oh, don't talk about God because you're not going to get in politics if you talk about God. I mean, it's constant. Oh, you got to lie to get in. And then when you can get in to change it. A liar is always a liar. They lie once, they will always, always, always lie.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then they got ya.
And this demoralization keeps happening, and then it's like I keep coming back to this phrase, you're going to get the hose again. We might have to get the hose again, meaning because we're making the bad decisions over and over. That's what happened to the Israelites. They were wandering for 40 years for a reason. God wanted them to fully trust him. And he had to get a whole generation of people that understood only, I have to follow God. That's the only way out of this. And even after that, they constantly forgot or neglected or chose the opposite direction. And there were a few times, we've talked about it before, where there was a king that read the book and said, hey, we're doing this wrong. We have to fix this. And the king acted in such a way to make it happen. And all the people, when they realized how wrong they had been, they took a great action to mourn and get over it and then get on the right side. And is our nation there yet? We're not quite to Sodom and Gomorrah. People call it that, but we're headed in that direction. And what happened? They were completely destroyed. What happened to the world when God saved one family and destroyed everybody? You think he can't do that again? Well, he said he wouldn't. He wouldn't destroy the entire world, but he allows us to make decisions and accept the consequences because that's what a father does with his children when they're supposed to be maturing. He lets us make our own mistakes and accept the consequences. And he's there to accept us back like the prodigal son and say, yep, you did. Like you were just saying earlier, yep, I screwed up. I got to try to do this the right way again and again and again and again. And that's why the blood of Jesus can save us all from any and all evils. But we have to get in God's grace, and we can't keep turning away from him and expect a different consequence.
I absolutely agree with you, but I'm going to tell you, to see the amount of sniveling cowardice in these parties is absolutely nauseating to me. It is so nauseating. I could do a great impression of it because it is absolutely nauseating. You can't win that way. Oh no, whatever will
Yeah.
happen to us. That kind of thing. You think God's not going to spit that out of his mouth as absolutely disgust? I'm disgusted with it. I'm sure God's disgusted with it. And it's like, it is a disgusting display of cowardice and lack of faith in God. So I guess I'm the one that's going to just across everybody's face and say, knock it off. I don't want to hear it anymore. And, go wind up somebody else's, up somebody else's business. Cause I literally don't want to hear it anymore. It's disgusting and you shame yourself. And
It's a blatant fear over faith.
it is blatant. To go into this, I'm going to put another post out there because I think that this is part of the Bible study that I did this morning. I create my own Bible studies. Of course I do. If I was digging a hole, I'd probably make my own shovel, right? That's just the way I am. And this was about, honestly, it was inspired by Titus 1:16. Titus 1:16 is where I started this morning, and I'm just going to read my Bible study that I ended up generating for this. And I probably will publish all my Bible studies at some point in time so that other people can maybe have a different way to look at it. Because, of course, I don't do anything right away and acceptable to most people. So it's just the way it is. Titus 1:16 says, they profess to know God, but by their deeds they deny him. Cowardice denies God.
Yeah.
End of story. Those words land softly, but they carry an ache, like a gentle hand nudging you to look deeper. They ask us as human beings to pause and wonder, are we living what we claim to believe? Not in a way that accuses, but in a way that invites us closer to the one who made us, who calls us to something more. So this is a different tone than what I had earlier. It kind of both is necessary. One to wake up and then the other one to focus on God. Okay. Think of Jesus, not the distant figure we sometimes imagine, but the Son of God who walked this earth, feet dusty from the roads, heart heavy with love. He wasn't just a teacher with good advice. He was divine, carrying heaven's weight in a human body that felt every sting of pain, every pierce of rejection. He wept with Mary and Martha when their brother died. His tears mingled with theirs, not because he had to, but because their sorrow was his own. He loved so fiercely it unsettled people. His compassion broke rules. His truth cut through pretense. The world hated him for it because he didn't bend to its ways. He was different, set apart. Yet he knelt to wash feet, shared tables with sinners, and worked in quiet moments unseen by crowds, but seen by the Father. As human beings, we feel the tug that call to follow him, to let him transform us. It's not about it's not about being perfect or chasing praise. It's about the quiet moments when no one's watching, choosing kindness when anger feels easier, listening when you'd rather scroll, forgiving when it hurts. We profess to know God, but do our lives actually tell that story? Not in grand gesture, but in small, steady ways, like the widow who gave her last coins, unnoticed but by the world, but precious to God. That's the faith we're invited to, one that changes us from the inside, making our deeds a reflection of the love we receive from God Almighty. The world pulls us hard. Be louder, be richer, fit in. But Jesus calls us to be different, to live for a kingdom that measures worth in love, not likes. It's daunting, isn't it? We're human, we're flawed, we're tired, we're distracted. Yet there's freedom in knowing we don't have to have it all figured out. Jesus, the one who wept and loved and died for us, walks with us. His spirit stirs in us, gently reshaping our hearts to love like he does, to serve without needing applause, and to weep with those who weep. So today, We can start small. An apology we've been avoiding, a moment of patience with someone who grates us, a prayer for strength. These aren't big things, but they're real. They're the threads of a life being woven into something beautiful, something that says, I know him and he's changing me. And that's where we're going with this right now, is not being a bunch of sheep, but to following God, not knowing where this is going to end, but walking every day step by step. And that's the direction we need to go. So, Greg, you're here. I'm going to take a 1-minute break here, and we're going to go get into lawful defense of this nation and what true liberty is, and following God, not following our biases, but laying it all down and moving forward into things we may not even know what's coming. Karen, you want to have some last words here, or you want to stay?
Oh, I will just share that Ralph, who is still listening, but he's got to get going now. He said, "Are we going to be Joshua and Caleb and proceed with faith? It was only 2 of the 12 that had faith," and he's absolutely right. Everybody said, "Well, that obstacle is too great for us. There are too many people. We can't possibly take over that land." And Joshua and Caleb said, this is God's fight. God's got it. We can do this because it's God's battle. It's not ours." And they were the ones that got into the promised land.
The parties are not our savior. This is God's battle, God's fight, and it's going to be God's win. And we're going to lay everything we've ever done at the feet of God Almighty, of Jesus Christ, our Savior, and just say thank you. That's all we can do. So with that said, I'm going to go to a real quick break here, and I will be back in exactly 1 minute with Greg Martini talking about real stuff. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna. Brandenburg is the 16th day of July 2025, and welcome to our show. I'm going to jump right on and bring Greg in right now. How you doing, Greg?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's every single day, you know. Sometimes I go to the Jesus turning tables over in the temple, because right now we're losing our freaking nation, and everybody wants to see Gentile Jesus with a lamb on his foot. And it's like, you know, we're past that time. We're losing this nation. I think some things going in the right direction. I'm going to say that. I think the good guys are in control. God's in control, certainly. But our behavior has to step up to the plate and stop this mincing words nonsense and letting these people that are manipulating our nation, like the unconstitutional mandate that we just looked at right now, to basically change the Constitution of Michigan in a very subversive and very evil way. And so,
and you had a great show yesterday as well, going through the Constitution. But unfortunately, you were going through the 1963 Constitution. I've spread all 4 Michigan constitutions out, and when you look how much they've changed it from the original 1835 Constitution to the current one, they have effectively eliminated all of your rights and converted them all to privileges. And it kind of goes back to what Karen was talking about with the definition of United States citizens, a U.S. citizen. I am not a U.S. citizen, and 99.9% of the people that live in America are not, but yet they have made 99.9% of all people born in one of the 50 states a United States citizen. And they did that so that they could swap your rights for privileges. So
and move this into commerce. I mean,
and put you into commerce.
Yes.
The 14th Amendment, which was passed in 1868, made us all slaves of the United States of America Corporation, which is domiciled in the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. So we swapped ourselves from a republic to a democracy back then. And it's complicated. They obviously didn't have the internet back then. They certainly had the right to assemble. But now we have the internet. We have the right to assemble. We can compare what's happened over the last 250 years of our history. And we have to learn. We have to go back to the schools that we taught for the first 100 years. And people have to learn their state constitutions, not their federal. The federal constitution guaranteed the states a Republican form of government. But then every single person in the state has swapped that Republican form of government in order to be a U.S. citizen. And it's exactly what Karen was saying. It's tough to go to the ballot box and check the box as a U.S. citizen, because that means you were domiciled, born or naturalized in that 10 square miles. I apologize. I have a cough today.
That's okay. Curtis put some things in here that I think are really significant that I want to read in the comments. And it was, I was told that a Democrat from the Bureau of Election wrote the petition. I don't know. There's a law firm involved in this. This is Ask My Tax. Article 7, Section 7 was also neutered by subversion in 1966. Our judicial branch of government that was part of the township was also removed. Now the most powerful branch of local government is the administrative branch. Michigan will be buying a buying frenzy if Ask My Tax passes. Out-of-state investors and BlackRock will buy every single family home that hits the market.
Well, and here's the beauty with Ask My Tax. It is void on its face, because we need to go back to the Republic. The Republic, no law, not some, not a few, no law can ever be passed to affect my inalienable rights that I was given from God. We have two forms of taxes, direct and indirect. That is a direct tax that they put on your property, and you don't even know it today. But with the exception, you've acquiesced to them. You've taken your property, mostly your home, you've put it into commerce, and then they can charge you property tax on it. You do not owe that property tax. Right now, the Supreme Court has made it very clear. That is your liberty interest. That property, we've got the right to own property, and we have a liberty right. Those rights, I mean, they've converted me swapping my labor for income. I don't make income. I am reimbursed for my time. That is materially different. That's the fruits of my labor.
That's your property. Your labor is when you work, that is your time. Your time is what you're being trading out in essence. They can't tax it. That is your property. That's also property.
It is your property. And by the way, once I understood this and went back and read the IRS Tax Code, and now I no longer file a federal tax return because I am not a U.S. citizen. I am not a U.S. citizen. I am domiciled in the state of Georgia. This is my home. And unless you swear to the government that you are domiciled in that 10 square miles, which every American does, because they don't read the documents they sign. When they fill out a W-4 at a corporation, they claim they're a U.S. citizen because it's ingrained in us. I am not a U.S. citizen. I am not domiciled there, and therefore I do not owe federal income tax. And that's really not what I wanted to talk about today, because we're in the middle of a very significant case in the state of Indiana. And everything comes down to jurisdiction. Everything. It does with taxes. It does with my constitutional rights, and whether we are a republic or a democracy. And the Supreme Court has said we're a republic. I live by God's law, fundamental common law. That's what the Supreme Court has said repeatedly in decisions over the past 2 years. Now, and they've completely flipped. They gave deference in the past to what was called the Chevron doctrine, which has been around for 75, 80 years. And that Chevron doctrine allowed these administrative agencies, which, by the way, exist in every single state as well. So those administrative agencies were allowed to change those definitions, and they changed the definitions materially. So you've got to go back to at the time that our founding fathers wrote the Constitution and gave me my rights, which are excluded from the Constitution. And the only purpose of government is to protect those rights. So again, I didn't want to talk about taxes today, but it kind of blends with what you did yesterday with Axe My Tax. That is an unconstitutional direct tax on we the people. It is not, constitutional. That is a direct tax. The only tax our government can charge is an indirect duties, import, and excise tax. And the Mohr case confirmed that, and that was decided June of last year. For the first time, the Supreme Court of the United States, in the Mohr case, Mohr versus USA, said that the income tax is an indirect excise tax. It is not a direct tax. Everybody has assumed for over 100 years that the income tax is a direct tax, and the 16th Amendment allows them to tax my income. Well, that's only if you call it income. What they did was they created this democracy in Washington. Washington, D.C. and the United States of America is a democracy. It's not a republic. That is their sovereign government. And then they brought all the people in America through the 1935 Social Security Act, because everybody wanted Social Security. Remember, we had just gone through 1929's crash and people were in food lines. So then they passed the 1935 Act. I believe the 1929 crash was manufactured in order to get people to sign up for that 1935 Social Security Act.
Absolutely.
And that 1935 Social Security Act made us all citizens of the United States of America. And that is what put you into their ability to charge you a direct tax on your income and your property. And it's very easy because the republic still exists. When the Supreme Court, and this is something that they are not required by law to identify, and nobody argues jurisdiction. No attorneys argue jurisdiction because they believe by acquiescence that we have all agreed to be these corporate vessels inside of that institution, inside of their democracy. So unless you stand on your sui juris status and your living man status, man or woman, then they just assume you are a corporate vessel and they've got full control and rights over you. And that's the case I wanted to talk about today. Where
I'm looking at your spreadsheet here. This is amazing.
It's unbelievable. And by the way, the 1850 Michigan Constitution, is that the one you're looking at?
I'm looking at the entirety of it because it's 1835. You put this together. You guys should see this spreadsheet. I don't know if it's going to show up online, but this is absolutely incredible.
I'd like you to find in the 1850 Michigan Constitution, find me the Bill of Rights. I put notes in the very first one, but the Bill of Rights has always been Article 1. And you know what they did in 1850 in Michigan?
Educate me on this.
They took out the Bill of Rights in Article 1, and they put the boundaries of the state.
Check this out.
Go to the 18.
Go ahead.
Go to the 18. I don't have the spreadsheet up, but you've got it there.
There's 63. So I'm just going to scroll through this. This is what Greg did. This is amazing.
I do this for all my states, and I understand what happened in over history.
Clearly. Okay, so here we go.
And it's unbelievable because they passed the 1850 Constitution and it excluded any Bill of Rights.
This is like a 4-column. You'll never see what I'm looking at here, guys, on screen. So we're going to talk about this more because Greg has literally done a comparison of all of our constitutions that we've had historically. And this is really amazing, Greg. So we got 1835, 1850.
It's amazing, but what's more amazing to me is what they did. They made Michigan a democracy in 1963, and they started it in 1850.
And that's how, well, I know that the 1963, because they only had 0.1% of the vote to put it in place. So it needs to be nullified because they never had the vote for it.
Never had the votes. I mean, again, all of these things. And you guys aren't the only state that did it. Every single state did it. In fact, you were the last one that acquiesced. But you did in 1850 adopt a constitution for the state of Michigan. And I don't live in Michigan, but I have a lot of friends that do, including in our movement. So I follow Michigan very closely. And they have literally just annihilated that constitution. The good news is it doesn't matter that they annihilated it. It's just like this Axe My Tax. We can spend our time on Axe My Tax, but if they pass that, it's unconstitutional. They cannot enact anything that infringes on my constitutional rights to own property without tax. The only way they can charge a direct tax on me is if we go to war. They can charge a direct tax on me. The Mohr case last year in the Supreme Court of the U.S. said we haven't enacted a direct tax on we the people since inception, or they said it was very limited because some people claim that during the Civil War we actually had a direct tax, and you can debate that, but it doesn't matter. Even if they did incorporate a direct tax, it can only be placed on us for 2 years. And then they have to redo it. So they can't keep us in perpetual war and claim. I mean, this is why constitutionally, the only authorized, and this is positive versus negative law, the only authorized branch of the government in the military that is authorized in our Constitution, our federal Constitution, is the Navy, not the Army.
It's about protecting our borders.
Correct.
So,
it's all about protecting our borders and international commerce. But again, I really want to get into this case that I'm involved in Indiana because it brings a lot of these things to light. As you know, and as I've said on your show before, I am trying to create conflict with my government to demonstrate that I am sui juris. I am who I am. I am one of we the people, and I have constitutional rights. I don't want your privileges. If I take your privileges, I'm willing to pay a tax on your privilege, but that's a voluntary act on my part. The IRS is non-positive law. Don't owe those taxes. So I don't drive with a license plate on my vehicle, and I haven't for, almost 2 years now, year and a half. And neither does my friend in Cincinnati. Well, my friend in Cincinnati was arrested in the state of Indiana. He was pulled over for not having a license plate on his vehicle. And when he was pulled over, there was no victim. There's no warrant out for his arrest. He's not a felon. And they pulled him over simply for driving in the private. Well, unless there's a victim, the police officer or the sheriff, whatever, either or, is not entitled to arrest you unless they suspect that a felony is about to occur. There's only 3 ways in this country that a constitutional republic American, and I like the way Karen phrased it because we're American, but I'm domiciled in my state. And I've got the beauty of all of my state constitutions under a Republican form of government, which has been guaranteed to me, not only in my state, it's been guaranteed to me by my founding fathers and the U.S. Supreme Court or the United States Constitution, which guarantees that they will never infringe on the rights of we the people in the states. So, and we have a Republican form of government. So we identify ourselves as sovereign. And yes, I am sovereign. I'm not a sovereign citizen. I am sovereign. And the Supreme Court has identified that. People need to go back and read Judge Gorsuch's books. The very first book he wrote in 2019 was Republic, If You Can Keep It. That's a great book. And then he wrote another book in 2023 called Overruled. He gives us the formulas. We, the people, have to learn our rights and stand on those rights. So I'd like, if you can, I sent you a couple emails.
I did. Which one do you want me to pull up?
Pull up, if you can. Let's pull up the case summary first.
Give me the title that's in that you sent it to me under.
It should be under case summary for Rob's Majunas. I sent it at 8:48 a.m.
Yep, I've got several of them here. Hang on a minute. I've got.
Oh yeah, you know what? Because I sent you that Michigan Constitution under that as well.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I can explain this.
Is it notice of maladministration?
No, it's not that one. Actually, go ahead and pull up the writ of error.
Okay. Yeah, I have to see that because I've got a lot of files there for you, so I'm gonna have to know the exact exact one that you sent me, and I can pull that up.
The writ of error. I'm going to discuss the case summary just to give people a background. So he was arrested February 6th, and he was charged February the 18th, June. He was arrested June 18th. He was charged with 3 counts. He was charged with, initially, he was not charged with driving without a license. They later added that charge. They charged him with 2 felonies. One is a drug felony because he had his ADD medicine with him. Secondly, he also had $47,000 in cash. Now, remember, all these are traps that we have been laying for years. And then he was charged with resisting arrest. Well, you cannot be arrested in this country, as I said before, unless there's three ways that an officer can arrest you. One, there's a warrant out for my arrest, which comes from a grand jury. The grand jury has to it has to go through a grand jury process. I have to be indicted, and there has to be a warrant out for my arrest. Secondly, if they witness a felony occurring, and they think it's, someone could be a danger to others. And the last one is breach of the peace. Well, when you get pulled over in the middle of a highway and it's you and the officer, clearly you're not breaching anyone's peace unless you're attacking the officer, which he clearly was not doing. This is a very successful real estate developer that lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. So in this case, we then proceeded with this district attorney, as well as this judge. It's a woman judge in that county. And we filed numerous notices. And if you go down a little bit in that document, you'll see some links for our notices. So we filed some notices immediately upon him getting arrested. Now, they arrested him on a Friday afternoon. We believe that the arrest probably isn't direct. Those links right there. All of these notices we filed, and you can click on any one of those and pull up any one of those notices.
Which would you prefer? Which one?
You can go ahead and start with the first one. And it will link you to a folder.
All right. I don't know why I don't have a hang on a minute. It's not letting me click on it. Click. All right, we'll see. Nope, not letting me do it, Greg.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's a publicly accessible folder. Actually, try to pull it up in the Word file.
I'll do it. I'll do it in
that way as well.
Okay, so I'll try this a different way. Okay, hang on a minute. Just go ahead, and I'm going to continue trying to make it work.
So these notices are very direct and very simple. And judges aren't accustomed to this because attorneys never argue jurisdiction. 52 million cases filed last year, and none of those were traffic stops. That's another 50 million. And in those 52 million cases, 99% of the time, attorneys do not argue jurisdiction, and they don't for a reason, because attorneys can only represent. They can't represent me as a living man. They can only represent me as a vessel. That the vessel is what was created for me at my birth. Then it was reaffirmed in my Social Security card, and I mean, a lot of people talk about it. This is what people refer to as the deep state. And the whole American Bar Association, they represent vessels. They represent non-living, breathing individuals. So you have to represent yourself. Now, you can do that one of two ways. You can do that pro se, but if I do it pro se, I am acquiescing to their court rules, which are rules of civil and criminal procedure. If I do it sui juris, I'm doing it and standing on I am who I am. I'm representing myself as one of we the people that lives in a certain state, and that standing gives me standing in almost every courtroom in America. But remember, this courtroom that is a state superior court was created very similar to Michigan. They completely changed the court systems so that we don't have Article 3 courts, which are judicial courts. We have legislative courts. Every single court in America, other than the Supreme Court and the federal district courts, are these legislative courts that were created out of the legislature. And the legislature is capable and did of merging all three branches of the government, the judicial, the legislative, and the executive, into a single branch, and granting authority to these legislative courts where they have all power. And this is why Judge Gorsuch identifies this in his Republic book that was written in 2019, but then he further affirms it. And he says, basically, every single American is committing 3 felonies a day. It's just a matter of which one our government wants to charge you with. So in order to stop this, we have to have these types of conflicts. So we filed all these notices and affidavits in that case, and you can see the list of them that's filed there.
I finally got it to go up. I had to do a little bit of magic here to get it to come up for some reason, but Ralph got kicked off this morning, so I'm assuming that there's some.
Yeah, and believe me, they target us a lot because they don't like us talking about what we're talking about.
I'm sure.
So these notices are basically statements of the facts in the law. And the law is the Constitution of the Republic. That is the law, not statutes, not codes. It is the Constitution of the Republic. And that law is based upon and moves upon the fundamental common law. And that is the law of the land. So if you are going to charge me as a sui juris, as one of we the people, you have to have a grand jury. You have to have a witness signed by affidavit on what the charges are. And that witness that signs that affidavit has to have firsthand knowledge of the transgression that I had against another person. Well, here's what they did. Here's what our government does. And they did this in J6ers. They do this in every single case. In the case against Rob Smijunas, the affidavit that they file was filed by a sheriff clerk sitting in an office that takes the police reports, combines them, and then she files an affidavit. Well, that affidavit is filed by someone that doesn't even know Rob Smijunas, wasn't even involved in the arrest, has no firsthand knowledge, and yet she signed an affidavit and filed it that became charges against Rob Smijunas in an administrative courtroom. These are all administrative courtrooms. They're administrative legislative law. They are not constitutional law. They do not operate by the fundamental common law. So we wanted one remedy and one question asked. We wanted the judge to identify what jurisdiction they had over Rob Smijunas, who is my friend? Well, they really can't answer that question. So what do? They can't answer that question. So literally every notice and every affidavit that we filed, it's in a court of equity, not a court of record. So they strike it from the record. Every single thing. The only affidavits that were filed by a living being in this case were filed by Rob Smijunas. And yet this judge summarily just deleted them all from the record.
Oh my
Every
God.
single one. Well, how can you get justice if you can't walk into a courtroom and file an affidavit under penalty of perjury, because he's under penalty of perjury, and then have a judge not rebut anything that's in the affidavit, which they can't do, because all we did was cite maxims of law, which are the law of the land. That is fundamental God's common law. And the Supreme Court of the United States cases that validated that that is the law of the land. And yet this judge summarily just removed them all from the record. Well, of course they can win 98% of their cases against defendants in America, because they can make up whatever law they want. In order to get justice for someone that's sovereign in America, which is literally 330 million of us, we just don't know it. And we are sovereign, and we are the kings and queens of this country. In order for us to get justice, it has to be in a court of record, and it has to go by due process of law. Those two things are absolutely critical. But if you don't know your jurisdiction, and if you hire an attorney and you acquiesce to our government, then they make you, and this judge keeps saying, oh, you're representing yourself pro se. We have never once used the term pro se, because I don't want to be pro se. Pro se puts me and Rob in a position where he has to argue using civil and criminal rules of procedure. Well, before this case can move forward, this judge has to determine that she has jurisdiction over us. So she cited two IC codes, which are Indiana Constitution codes, and she cited them and cited those as the reason she has jurisdiction over a living, breathing man. Well, here's the problem with that. That's a legislative administrative court, which means in order for that court to have jurisdiction over me, there has to be a contract with that court. I didn't sign a contract, and neither did Rob Smijunas sign a contract with that state. He didn't sign a contract to give that state jurisdiction over him. In fact, he took back his vessel as well as I did. So there is his vessel he totally controls. And that judge completely ignored it. Now, the only reason I bring this case up is because this is true with every single case in America. I mean, we don't argue over jurisdiction. We argue over, with attorneys, these crazy motions and these crazy rules. Well, when you're sui juris and you file in a courtroom, and these are extremely professional filings, although this judge dismisses them because she claims there is no remedy. Well, the remedy is real simple. Just tell me what your jurisdiction is over me. And she cited two codes. Well, that doesn't give you jurisdiction. Cite in the Constitution of the state of Michigan, and I'm talking about the original one. I'm not talking about all the fake ones that they created after they converted it to a democracy, which is exactly what happened in Michigan. They converted everything to a democracy. And they took you, I've talked about before, and we've shared on your show, Jaron Jackson does this explain sketch, and your rights are excluded from the Constitution. Well, what they did was created a democracy over here, and they put you in the constitutional trust of the democracy, and they made you a trustee. And that way they made you a slave. They made you a slave of the king who was elected, which is Donald Trump. That's why they call him a king. That's why they call it a democracy. It is. They're running a democracy, which is this, fake government over the top of the constitutional republic. So my buddy and I are in the constitutional republic, and we have picked these battles in order to take these cases not only in this court, because this court we will not get remedy. We know it. And there's a chance they put him back in prison. He may lose this case. So we filed this writ, which you can pull back this writ of error. And we were very kind because we filed it in her courtroom again so that we could educate her. So this writ walks you through, and I can pull up the writ as well so that I can read it with you. Let's see here. I open too many files on my desktop, so I tend to have 10 different things going at the same time. Writ of error. So the first part of this writ, petition for writ of error, quorum nobis, which basically just means, Judge, you made a mistake. You dismissed all of these. We did ask for a remedy. You chose not to give us remedy. You chose not even to discuss the issue of jurisdiction. So what is the grounds for the writ? Refuse to answer our question. Where in the Indiana Constitution did the people delegate authority to the legislatures? And I'm reading right in item number 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where you are. That's what I'm doing right now.
I'm near the very top. I'm on page 1.
Page 1, okay.
Page 1 at the bottom.
All right.
Oh, no. You're in the notice. I'm sorry. Go back to the writ. That's where you copied it. Go back to the actual writ, because the writ's going to summarize why she dismissed all of the notice.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me get this figured out. So that's what I have there. Do I need to bring up a different document then?
Yeah, the original writ that you had where you were trying to click on the link, that document.
All right, hang on just 1 minute.
Like you said, we do this live, so it's clearly not prepared.
This is the way that it works. And quite honestly, I think that this is it's a good process because it's, you know what? It's not scripted. We're doing this on the fly, which is, I think it's very authentic. And okay, so here we go.
Yeah, let's go back up to the top. And I'm reading from the bottom of the first petition of writ. He identifies he is Joseph Robert Smijunas. He's a private living man, sui juris, not a corporate citizen, which is literally if you go into any superior court, and I don't care whether it's Michigan, I don't care whether it's Indiana, Ohio, Georgia, when you walk into a superior court, it is assumed you are a corporate vessel. It is assumed you are your name in all caps, which is your corporate vessel that they've created for you. It's assumed by acquiescence. And if you hire an attorney, that is the only thing the attorney can represent is that corporate vessel, not you as a living, breathing man. So we have identified this in every notice as well as every affidavit that we've signed. Who enters by special limited appearance and not generally and respectfully files this petition of writ of error. Why did we file the writ of error? Because she refuses to answer this question. Where in the Indiana Constitution did the people delegate authority to the legislators to enact any statute, code, regulation against the inalienable rights of one of we the people, as guaranteed in Article 1, Section 1 of the Organic Indiana Constitution? Well, we know the answer to that, and she can't answer that question because she can't have in her courtroom a living, breathing man. She can't have someone represent themselves sui juris. She can only have someone represent themselves, their vessel, which is what pro se is. Pro se is representing my vessel. It's representing the vessel that they created for me. That way they have control, and that way statutes and codes apply to you. Statutes and codes do not apply to we the people at all. There's nowhere in the Constitution where the government is allowed to write a statute that affects my constitutional rights. In the federal or the state constitutions, nowhere. It doesn't exist. We created our government and we excluded our constitutional rights, and we said they are excluded and you can never write a law against any of them. You're allowed to charge me a direct tax, as I mentioned before. You can only charge me a direct tax, though, for war. And that direct tax has to be done in a certain way. And I just told you before, we don't have direct taxes in this country, which means you don't owe your income tax, you don't owe your property tax. It's a whole separate conversation. But if you tell the government you're a U.S. citizen, you do owe it. So that, again, that kind of links it to your conversation from yesterday, which I think people should go back and watch those, especially, I mean, John Tater and Michael do a great job of explaining the constitutions and your rights. So we go on. What this judge did was strike every single notice and affidavit that we entered into a court of equity. When it's not a court of record, you can't get your files heard. And they do this, again, for a reason. They don't want you inserting into a court of equity truth. They want motions, and they want to be able to argue motions, and constitutional jurisdiction really is going to give them a heartache. Now, we're going to file additional writs, which we can talk about in future shows, but this writ of error is putting this judge, along with the district attorney, along with the sheriff, along with Pam Bondi, along with Judge Gorsuch, because we've noticed everybody. You can see that at the bottom of this writ. It's a broad distribution of knowledge, and we've educated them on the law. Now, at the very top, they understand the law, but at the very bottom, they don't. And I feel bad because this judge and this district attorney and this sheriff are all operating, and these are what's called unofficial acts. They don't have immunity for unofficial acts. They are personally liable for unofficial acts. And in these notices, there's some pretty large numbers because they put my friend in prison. They stole his liberty with no constitutional basis to do it, other than they called him a sovereign citizen. So they called him a sovereign citizen when they came up to his door because he didn't have a license on his vehicle, and they arrested him and they put him in prison. And then they did an unlawful search and seizure of his vehicle, because clearly they didn't find any of those things just laying in his vehicle, in order to charge him with 2 felonies to try to keep him in prison. And then I will tell you, I think the judge knew, because they told him he was going to be there till Monday, and they ended up letting him out after 8 hours, because I think they knew they were in trouble. But yet the DA wants to continue to prosecute him, which is fine. I have no problem, and neither does he, because they're setting themselves up for this constitutional question to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. I know what the answer is going to be at the Supreme Court of the U.S., because we understand our constitutional rights in the Republic. But yet they're operating in their democracy. So they're operating under a set of rules and regulations and statutes, Legislative Administrative Act, which is basically it only applies to corporations. It does not apply to living beings. And that is something that people have to learn in this country. We are sovereign. We are living, breathing beings. We are not dead entities. They only operate with dead entities. They only operate pro se. That's why I always ask myself the question when I first learned pro se, because I've actually argued pro se in cases, a decade ago. And I'm like, why do I have to be pro se? I am who I am. Why can't I just be myself? Well, the reason you can't be yourself is because you're not yourself. It's a separate entity. So when you represent yourself pro se, you're representing your entity, not your living, breathing self. Those are 2 different things. And that's understanding your jurisdiction. That's understanding you're not a U.S. citizen. Unless you were born in the 10 square miles, or they call it the federal zone, one of the U.S. territories, Puerto Rico or the United States does own property. So wherever they own property, that's a U.S. territory. That's part of what's called the federal zone. If you are born in that zone, you are subject to their rules and regulations and statutes. And most people don't realize this. When Congress passes an act, if they pass an act as non-positive law, it only applies to people that live or were born in that territory, or people that were naturalized in that territory. And that's where they catch you. That's where they catch everybody, because they have naturalized every single American in that territory, in that 10 square miles. So when you begin to understand the different jurisdictions that they've created and why, and the Chevron doctrine, but remember, the Chevron doctrine has been overturned. It doesn't exist. So all those definitions that they created in the Social Security Act, in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, all those definitions that they created, this scheme, which became the deep state, is unconstitutional. But it's only unconstitutional for the people that know the difference between someone that wants their constitutional republic rights and someone that wants to live in the democracy. Now, many people I know will tell me, well, Greg, the government will collapse if we shut down the democracy. Well, no, it won't. I mean, that's why Donald Trump is pushing tariffs as hard as he is, because that's an indirect tax on duties, imports, or excise. He's got a constitutional right to do it. He wants to return the country to the people, or at least I believe he does. I mean, at times, the real thing he has to do is return grand juries to we the people, because grand juries will allow us to take these affidavits that we've signed. Those are court cases. That's my court of record. An affidavit is my court of record constitutionally. And I get to have a jury of my peers judge the law and the facts. But in a court of equity, in their rules of civil and criminal procedure, they've separated those two. The judge gets to determine the law, and the jury only decides the facts. And they call that due process. Well, that's not due process of law. That's their fake due process in their fake administrative court system. This is not taught to anybody in America. It's not even taught to attorneys. Attorneys don't even understand and recognize what I'm saying to you. But it is the fact. Judge Gorsuch knows it. Donald Trump knows it. Pam Bondi knows it. Kash Patel knows it. It's funny when we talk about Brennan and Comey being investigated by the FBI. Well, you know how investigations are supposed to work? You turn over the evidence. They find the evidence. They turn it over to a grand jury. A grand jury investigates them, not the FBI. They accumulate the data, turn it over to a grand jury, sit a grand jury, and they will indict those two guys so fast our head will spin. And the same with the Epstein people. Why haven't they turned over those records to a grand jury to investigate? Because grand juries do the investigation. But we've never learned that in our country. They hijacked grand juries in 1871. They made it and they put it underneath the AG. But by the way, they can do that because they live in a democracy. They have a king. Whoever we elect as president is a king in this country. It's mob rule because they don't live in the republic. They take an oath to it. But the problem is they take an oath to the republic and the democracy at the same time. You can't take an oath to two different masters. The democracy, they've taken an oath to uphold the shareholders of that entity, the United States of America Corporation. In the republic, they took an oath to we the people that they're going to protect my rights. When's the last time you saw a judge actually help someone that was being, accused of a felony? This judge is my servant. And yet this judge dismisses my notice and affidavit, my friends, and when I say my, I'm talking about Rob Smijunas, has dismissed his notices and affidavits. Not because they're not truth, not because they're not correct, she dismisses them because she keeps calling him pro se. And as pro se, she's got every right to dismiss him. She doesn't want those on her court record because then she's personally liable. She is personally liable for an unofficial act against a king. And that's called maladministration. And maladministration is the worst crime you can commit in this country. In fact, it's worse than murder. When your servant is attacking a king and not giving him remedy, which he's entitled to in his constitution, that's why maladministration is so bad. That's why we need grand juries. And I am hoping that the sheriff of this little town in Indiana understands this, because he is also personally liable, because he's contributing to this and he's received every one of these notices. And I hope he's reading them, because we're educating him.
This is so much bigger than what people can possibly imagine. It is the entirety. It's the counties. It's the townships. It's not just where they're having us look right now. It's the whole system has been upended.
But Donna, if we don't, I believe, and I have been studying this for years now, and so has Rob Smijunas, and we understand it. And we're not out here just doing crazy things. By the way, I wouldn't recommend anyone to do what we're doing and take your license off your car and call yourself a sovereign citizen, which many people do. I wouldn't recommend that to
people
anyone.
That are doing that they just
they don't know the law. We know the law. I've studied the constitutions, the state constitutions. I understand my Bill of Rights. I understand my jurisdiction, and I understand theirs. I've operated in both. God has enlightened me beyond my abilities. And I am doing this. I don't need to do this. I mean, just like most people in our group don't need to do this. We're doing this for our posterity. I'm doing this for my kids and their grandkids, because if we don't, we are already a communist nation.
Oh, absolutely we are.
The reason I'm a finance guy, I understand finance well. The federal government spends $7 trillion. The federal government's responsible for protecting me, and that's it. And you know how much they spent on that last year? $850 billion. Where did the other 6.25 billion trillion? So they 850 billion on defense, and then the rest of it was spent on all these other things that they don't have jurisdiction over. The only reason they have jurisdiction is because we acquiesced in 1871, long before the internet existed, and they crammed down these new constitutions. There was no reason for the state of Michigan to write new constitutions in 1850, in 1908, in 1963. Why did they write a whole new constitution and adopt it? Well, the good news is the maxims of law say they're void on their face, every single one of them. You know why? Because they took my rights and converted them into privileges. And when you write any law that affects my rights, I don't have to obey their constitutions. I have to obey the Constitution that was the original Constitution. But most people don't understand this. So I love your movement. I love your direction. I love the fact that you're all patriots and you're fighting. But you're the president of the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan. To me, we have to identify what Constitution Party is it? Is it the Constitutional Republic, which I believe it is, because I know you personally, but I don't know that everybody in your group knows that. I don't know that they even understand the difference between the Constitutional Republic and the constitutional democracy, because I use you see my spreadsheet. I use your virgin Constitution. That's what I use. And I use the fundamental common law. I use God's law. And that is the Bible and my maxims of law. This is the Bible for me. This is what's in our notices and affidavits, because this cannot be adjudicated by a judge. These are taken to be truth and fact. Why? Because they're thousands of years old. These go all the way back to Proverbs and Psalms, directly in God's word. And these are tried, true, and tested. But there's not an attorney I can't even be sued by my government unless they cite a maxim of law that I violated another king's rights. They can't sue me. The only reason they can sue me is under a statute or a code which don't apply to me. That applies to my servants. So how are they able to literally apply every statute and code to all of us, to all of we the people? They do it by tacit acquiescence. We have literally acquiesced all of our rights to our federal government, and they've converted my rights into what they call civil rights or political rights. They've classified me. Well, they can't do that. They've classified me. They can't do that. So all those classifications in every one of those constitutions that they wrote after the original Constitution is void on its face. It's void. We don't have to fight for our country back. My founding fathers have already fought for my country. They won it in 1775. This is our anniversary year. We need to spread this word because it's the good news. It's God's word. It's the good news. It's the light has gone off. I didn't know any of this 5 years ago. I don't file 1040s because I don't owe it. And I don't recommend someone do this without learning the law.
Hey, you've got to know.
You got to know how to defend yourself.
This is not legal advice at all. These are
It
things
is not
that
legal advice.
need to ponder, and I think this is important. I mean, we need to have these discussions, all of these discussions, because the communist system that's in place right now, which I believe they're working pretty hard at getting rid of it, and we're going in a good direction.
We'll never. The legislature will never give it up. You know why they won't?
They won't.
Let's go back to the $7 trillion. You know how much they take out of that every year for themselves? Probably 2 of the 7, if not more. I think it's more. I'm being conservative. And that's what Elon Musk found. That's what. Why is it that you can have people in the Social Security Administration, which is an act of 1935, that are 130 and 140 years old, still getting checks? Yeah. Well, that's real simple. That's real simple. It's perfectly legal.
They found the fountain of youth.
It has nothing to do with living beings. It has nothing to do with it. They will continue to get checks forever. That's the system they created. I understand that system.
Well, they've done it in our voting system too, where they've got fake IDs that are voting.
But that's they're allowed to. They're allowed to.
Any of this is all fiction.
That is legal.
They just kind of input it.
We've got to stop fighting them on their legal grounds and fight them on our constitutional right as sui juris. We have to understand, we have to go back to the original Constitution. So I love John Tater, but you shouldn't show the 1963 Constitution. Show the original one, because that's where your rights came from. They stole them in that 1963, and he did say it. He said it.
John has been one of the biggest ones to beat up that 1963 Constitution.
Right. But you need to spread them like I did and share that with John. Share that with everybody. I don't care. I mean, you know what? I asked ChatGPT. For a week, I tried to get ChatGPT to give it to me. They won't give it to me. They won't give me those comparisons. You know why? And they say that it's not available in API. Well, the heck it's not. It's on Michigan's website. I created it, and ChatGPT can't create it. But my kids all use ChatGPT as truth. It's not truth. They won't tell truth. Yeah, ChatGPT won't create that spreadsheet. I'd love to get somebody out there to have ChatGPT create that spreadsheet for me that I created for you.
Huh. You know what's really amazing is how many times I get turned down by answers if I'm actually looking for answers online. How many times if you're using AI or anything else, it's like failed request, and then if you change your wording, it'll kick it out. But
the only way you get truth on ChatGPT, and they do this now for me and everybody, but the only way I get truth is I had to upload every single one of those notices that I filed, and I asked ChatGPT, to show me specifically in my notices where something's not factually correct. It can't do it. It can't do it. So all of those notices that I gave you, and by the way, I think you should look at every one of them and read them. Read the notices and then read the affidavits. They're very direct. They're very succinct. I mean, I'm happy to share these with people. They struck them from the record in Indiana. Why? They don't want them public. I'm happy to make them public through your show.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I think this has been phenomenal. And studying the fundamentals of this nation is absolutely should be required. I mean, you can't require people to do anything, but people should require it out of themselves and say, you know what, I'm going to get in and I'm going to study first off the Bible. I'm going to study that and know what it says. It's not what everybody tells you it says.
How can they do that when in 1868, Harvard University led the nation to literally destroy and suppress every single state constitution. They don't teach them in law school.
Right. But I guess that's the point, is that we have to go back to the original document and not let, my point is go back to the Bible and read it. Don't read all of these books that they're selling in every allegedly Christian outlet. I'm kind of disgusted by that, really. It's like, pick the Bible up and read your Bible. Just read it.
It starts with the Bible.
And then go ahead and start studying these documents. We've got to start reading these things for ourselves, because the people that are pushing them, they're getting paid by somebody. Nobody's doesn't is, it's like all of them that are pushing these changes to the Constitution are getting paid by someone. I don't know if they're getting paid for the signatures they're collecting, but there's someone behind them. If we don't come to terms with that the entire political landscape is nothing more than an industry standing in its own right. It's not working the way that it's supposed to. The judges are making money. The law enforcement is making money. Not everyone. I'm not saying that all the cops are bad. That's not what I'm saying. But when you look at
they're implementing what the DAs tell them to.
They are, and they're absolutely complicit. But so are the political parties implementing with those who are.
We don't need political parties
controlling the money system to fund it. And you can see it right away when people immediately go to how much money is being raised. Well,
it's legal for them to do NGOs. It's legal for Stacey Abrams in my town. I stole $2 billion last year from the federal government. That's legal. That is legal in a democracy. She's being paid off, and she's paying off many other people.
And that's what they do it that way every time.
But that's legal. That's legal because they live in a democracy. I live in a republic. Most people live in that democracy that pays those fees. Stop paying them. Learn the law and stop paying fake income taxes.
Well, and
fake property taxes.
It's going to pay for our own subversion. These people are using what we've built, what we've made, everything we do.
We're the richest country in the world.
Yes.
We're the richest country in the world.
And
all they want to do is steal from us.
That's it.
Annihilate the middle class. They've made the 14th Amendment, which I really wanted to read. I don't know what time it is, but there's so much I wanted to cover. I just want to read the way the 14th Amendment's quoted, because the 13th Amendment freed the slaves, supposedly. The 14th Amendment, literally passed in 1868, made every single person in America slaves. It's just a matter of them getting you into the system. It says, all persons, now remember, a person, by their definition, is a vessel. It's a vessel. That's your corporate identity. All persons born or naturalized in the United States. The definition of the United States?
10 square miles.
10 square miles.
That's right.
By the way, this is the First Amendment. The 14th Amendment is the First Amendment. That's non-positive law. This is not in the record. It's not in the Federal Registry. People have no idea. You got to go back to this. Let me keep going. And
Keep going.
subject to the jurisdiction thereof, it all comes down to jurisdiction, are citizens of the United States. Exactly what Karen said before. What does that U.S. citizen mean? It means you're a 14th Amendment citizen. In every single notice we file, I let them know I'm not a 14th Amendment citizen. And so does Rob Smijunas, because that's how they have control of you. And then it says they reside, and then it goes on. I mean, and then it goes on to act like it means everybody, saying, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction. They keep saying it, within its jurisdiction. Why is that not in the other amendments 1 through 10 or 11 or 12 or 13? I mean, people need to go back and read and educate themselves. It's powerful. Jurisdiction is everything.
Well, it's like everything else. You know, we're all learning. We're learning together.
We are.
All of us woke up at different times and have progressed at different rates. I do believe that a lot of people really do. Most normal people just want this thing to work right. We want it to be
absolutely
the ideals we believe in. But the people that are in office are not representing us.
And they never will.
They never will, because we
have 2 of the 3 branches. We have the president, maybe. I think we do. But if we really have the president, he'll release the Epstein files and he will give we the people grand juries. He said he's going to return us to the republic. Okay, let's do it. The way you can do that overnight is let we the people control our government. How do you get redress or grievance? Right now we have lawfare, because the attorney general controls whatever cases are going to be filed, not we the people. We the people are supposed to. And we submit it to a grand jury and let the grand jury investigate each and every case. And we wouldn't have all these fake administrative agencies. I mean, why do I have to buy a license to drive my vehicle and as a driver and claim that I'm in commerce when I'm just going to the store? It's because I don't know the law. I don't know my constitutional jurisdiction.
I would love to see the nullification process. You know, like we've got, the Doge looking for corruption and such, but we need to have a nullification process.
It's real simple,
and it needs to be quick.
Anything that infringes on my right is null and void on its face.
But the point I'm making, Greg, the point I'm making is that we don't have something in place to do that. To just start striking this stuff from the record, because they are null and void. I would love to see that happen like immediately and just end this nonsense.
Jaron Jackson has a case filed in the Oklahoma Federal District Court, and he's asked for one remedy: sit a grand jury, and then we will get remedy. Until they do, we the people have no control and no ability to manage our government, because we can't get redress or grievance until we get Donald Trump, which said he wants to return us to the republic. Let's show us, prove it to the people. And you prove it to the people by telling Pam Bondi to allow sheriffs, which are literally in these corporate democracies. But this sheriff in this little town in Indiana, he is personally liable because he's committed. I just want one issue from him, and I will let him out of his liability, because he could lose his house. He could lose all his personal assets because he's operating in a rogue government. But I want one thing from him. He's a duly elected sheriff, and that sheriff has the ability to sit a grand jury. That's all we want. Do I think he will have the guts to stand up to the administrative government? No sheriff in this country has had it yet. Let's find a sheriff that will, and will sit a grand jury, and everyone in the country will be submitting our affidavits that are all unrebutted. All these affidavits we filed are unrebutted. What that court doesn't realize, what that judge doesn't realize, those are actual cases. Those are actual court cases from We the King. When kings traveled in Europe for thousands of years, when kings traveled, what did they travel as? They traveled as their court. That is their court. That's a court of record. Wherever they went, they brought their court with them. We're kings in America. They made us slaves. They made us trustees in the democracy. Take yourself back, put yourself in the republic, make yourself a queen again or a king, and take back your constitutional rights.
Do you have a list of actions? I'd like to see a list of actions, because I think that if there was a list, like a punch list for everyone to follow, it might be, those of us who have done a little more studying, we're probably a little quicker on the uptake. But I would love to see like a list of actions.
It's what my kids want too. And the problem is, until we win some of these cases and we're trying to change 150 years of tyranny, really 200, because it started long before the 150 years. We're trying to take ourselves back to 1789 in that original Constitution where my rights were protected and my government was only there for purposes of protecting my rights. I mean, that's tough to do when I didn't know any of this 5 years ago. I mean, I worked on Wall Street in finance. I didn't know how the banking system worked. I do now. I understand. And this Genius Act and this vote that's getting ready to come about, that's just more tyranny. That's guaranteed tyranny for life.
Yep. Vote no on everything and demand that they vote no, because none of them have got this figured out yet.
Trump just said last night it's going to pass. Trump just said he's switched. Well, he didn't really switch. I mean, you talked about this earlier. And they're going to pass this Genius Act. That Genius Act combines total control of your bank account. And if you don't take the next shot they tell you to take, your bank account won't work.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Wow, this is great, Greg. Let's resume this next week again on Wednesday. I think this is just amazing to go down this, and the spreadsheet that you created is just incredible. I mean, that is amazing. Thank you so much for putting the time into that. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and everything that the time you put into it, and as well as everyone that stands with you. I mean, I communicate with some of the people here in the state of Michigan, and incredibly selfless people who just want to serve. The whole group of everyone that you stand with is just incredibly smart, selfless patriots. And that, you usually can connect people when you see the connection of who they stand with or who they're around, not just talking about being out there and, talking to everybody. I'm saying the ones that you actually work with, you kind of get people figured out on whether they're legitimate or not. And the group you're with, I just want to tell everybody out there, I know there are a lot of them are watching because I'm watching the counts here. I want to thank everybody for all the work you put into it, for the years of study, and for being willing to put things together and really, move the line. It's really,
you said it right. Thank the whole group, because I'm just one piece of this body. We have some incredible people in our group.
There's incredible people in the group that are doing notices,
and we're all inspired directly by God. And I wouldn't do this. This is not me. I'm passionate about what I'm doing, but it really is inspired by him, and he's given me enough wisdom and the ability to speak, because this is not what I thought I would be doing in the twilight years of my life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people, when we did wake up and we were, trotting around doing our little life thing, and then all of a sudden reality hits you square in the face.
It does.
And then you realize this isn't somebody else's responsibility. This is my responsibility. And I need to do whatever it is that God asks me to do to take responsibility for righting the wrongs that we see. We can't expect someone to come and save us. It's like Axe My Tax. Everybody's looking for somebody to solve their problems. It's all been infiltrated. It's
It
all
is.
been infiltrated. The only way to do this is for us to stand together as people and to figure this out. And we're going to have to seat every single office in the state. That's one of the things that I
We
want
are.
to do is through the Constitution Party in Michigan here, the U.S. Taxpayers Party is the Constitution Party in Michigan. I'm suing Jonathan Brader over this issue right now, and it's pretty clear I'm winning on this one. But we're the Constitution
Good
Party,
luck.
and thank you. Pray for me, okay?
I
Really
will.
seriously.
I
And
will.
so the Constitution Party has got the ability to seat candidates. And we have no ability to get clean candidates through, in my opinion, on the other parties. And the
And
reason
you won't in the democracy. You won't.
they're part of the criminal system
Correct.
that's there. It's a criminal system. And when people stand with them, they are just the first step to rigging this entire system. We can't do that. We need to
Resurrect the republic and stand on that as the Constitution Party, and you'll be shocked at how powerful you will become.
I love it because, we are literally doing things that nobody else has done. And people are so burned by what they've been exposed to that they sit there twiddling their fingers. And in the last stage of Rome here, instead of deciding that we're going to fight for what is good. And, I was at the Capitol last week and I listened to one of the worst tours of my entire life, of which the state of Michigan directs people going to Washington to. I was horrified to go through. It was a totally communist tour that talked about all of our failings. We are not defined by our failings. We are defined by way more than that. And we focus on that and being a victim-run state to be victims. Who's going to stand for that? I'm not going to stand for that as a bunch of sniveling cowards. We're not defined by the failings. We're defined of those great moments. And we need to stand on that and fight for what we love, not snivel around of every bad thing that's happened. We can't. There's a lot of failings out there. Look at the entire legislature. They're failed. And so, but that doesn't define us. We're completely separate from that. They work for us and they're failed. So with that said, let's go into prayer here, and then I'll plan on you being on next week.
That's great.
And if anybody else from your group wants to come on, I would welcome them. Please reach out to me, because I have made it very easy for people to reach out, to find me, to, let's see if I know I've got a banner here somewhere. Just a minute. I'm looking here. We'll go there. There you go. Text first, because I've got a million people, not quite a million, but a lot. I've got a lot of people contacting me all the time. Please don't call me to be your therapist. People will call and want me to be their therapist and fix their problems by talking. Come with a solution, or be able to stand with us so that we can move the line. If you need a therapist, I get it. We're all hurting, but if you want to move the bar, you got to come and be willing to work. You want to move the line, you've got to be willing to work and not just vent. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's not helpful. It just wastes everybody's time. We're all hurting. We've all got issues going on, and trying to figure this out. Come with some solutions. So with that said, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for this day, for Greg and for Karen and for Ralph and all the wonderful people that are watching today, because I'm assuming there's a lot of people that are part of We the People Notices, and people that have done work, that are doing work, that are looking for other people to join them and work alongside of them, not just watching them and going, yay, go sports team. We're thankful that you show us your truth, that we will not stand with liars. We will not justify the ends or the means by the ends, but that we will stand together in truth and in honesty, serving you here in your land. It's your sandbox, and I'm glad it is. I wouldn't want to be in charge of this mess. I got to tell you that. What a job that is in front of us. You've let us make decisions, as a good father always will, and we're learning that a lot of the decisions we've made have been bad. We're thankful that you have continued to walk with us, to call us out of this very corrupt system of slavery and bondage. Every single one of us is been subject to some very, very evil policies and procedures that go right back to Satan himself in bringing the entire earth under his dominion. Well, not going to work. I know that for a fact, because I trust you and you're in charge. Anyone that has jumped into this evil system and has been playing ball with them, they got a lot of explaining to do. And we, each of us, have had failings in our past, and we're thankful that you have been guiding us, showing us, and directing us. You gave us your word, and we're going back to that. And we ask you to be in charge of this nation, of our lives, of our families, of everything around us, because you know what? We can't do it. We are completely unable to do it. We can do all things through you, but you are the one doing the work. We're just taking a stand and continuing to walk forward and refusing to be demoralized, to give up, and to fail. Thank you so much for being such a great friend to us, our Father, our Savior, our Counselor, our Provider, our Banner, and our Lord and Savior. Thank you for this day. We commit it to you in your hands. We give you everything that we have, our time, our treasure, our sacred honor, everything we lay at your feet. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
There we go. So, boys and girls, here we go to it. Let's get the right hand here, because everything's backwards. Go to ding, 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 ding. Go to brandenburg.com, because I'm the best non-conceited who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And this is my 2022 protest. I would like to talk with President Donald J. Trump in cowboy boots. We'll figure out who wears it better. It will be me, because I wear them every day. And then we'll talk about real stuff. So with that said, make it a great day. Every minute needs to be thoughtful with purpose. Don't waste your time. Your time is your right. It's your property. Don't waste it. It's a gift. God gave us amazing gifts. And we're here not to sit back and just watch Rome burn, watch this thing burn as we are having a great time, playing the fiddle, bread and circuses and such. We're here to make a difference. We should be making a difference every single day, in small things and large things. But our time isn't even our own. It's God's. Give your time to God, every minute of it. Be purposeful and be moving forward with intention, and put a smile on your face. Do it in a way that we know, no matter how bad it seems, God's acknowledge it by joy, by refusing to capitulate, giving honor, and truly putting your faith in Him, not in these things we see. And you know what? We're going to win this. We're going to win this because God doesn't lose, and God always wins. Always. Amen. In the end, God always wins. So have a great day today. God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Go out with a smile, and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, let's see. I have a gal whose daughter was taken away by the state. And this is quite a heartbreaking story, because the largest human trafficking, child trafficking entity, hands down, in the United States, institutionalized, is HHS and CPS. And you're going to see firsthand what they did to destroy the lives of these people. And also, we will be having on a person who has a healing center, which is entirely different, and I mean entirely different, than what we have in the alleged healthcare systems, which are nothing more than death camps, modern day death camps. So have a great day. We're getting this thing figured out, and we're winning. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Stay in line.